Hello and welcome to Prototype and See, a brand new podcast for designers, engineers and innovators all about the product development journey. My name's James Murphy, co-founder of HLH, one of the world's leading manufacturers of prototypes and low-volume production parts. I've been in this industry for nearly 20 years, but I feel there's still a great deal about our customers that I don't yet understand. So, in Prototype and See, I'm going to be sitting down with some of the world's most innovative companies, talking to designers and engineers, all about the successes and failures, the ups and downs of bringing new products to market. Today, we are very privileged to have with us Alistair Williamson from Lucid Innovation, a one-stop shop for medical device and wellness product development. Alistair, welcome.
Thank you, James.
Okay, first off, can you just tell us a bit about you and Lucid Innovation, what you do and what you're all about?
Yeah, we design, develop and manufacture mainly medical devices, but quite a lot of cosmetic treatments and other wellness devices. We're based in Manchester Science Park. We work with academics, we work with commercial organisations, and we develop some of our own products, exploiting venture capital, grants and other sources of funding. We've been around for just over 20 years now, so I think we know what we're doing. And, we're a team of about 15 spread across electronics, software, UX design, industrial design, and regulatory specialists.
Okay, so it's mainly medical and cosmetic wellness products, but that's not where you started. I believe you started out in a completely different place.
I started out in toy and games design, primarily in toy and games design. It seems like a very different field, but really it's not, because toys and games, they're all about engaging people, capturing their attention, getting them to do things which perhaps they hadn't considered doing, and getting them to keep doing it, getting them to adhere. And it's also a field that's quite highly regulated. Obviously, we're very concerned with, particularly with children's products, with safety. So there are crossovers with medical device design that are important.
So what prompted the switch, though? What drove you to change from one to...
It was a combination of things. We were, as a consultancy business, which we were at the time, we were in a bit of a squeeze. The economy wasn't doing very well. A lot of UK companies were offshoring, not just manufacturing, but development, or they were buying products in which were already developed overseas. And we faced quite a lot of competition from universities and other institutions that were being publicly funded, basically to compete against us. And we realised that we've got to do something different, something which we're more unique in, something where the know-how, the skills and the experience are more difficult to acquire. And medical device design seemed like a very sticky kind of field. We were doing some products in that market already. And as I say, my background was very much in regulated devices. So I had a lot of know-how. My team had a lot of know-how which we could apply.
Okay, and do you think that background in toy design gave you guys like a unique...
It probably did give us some help, because there's been a transition, particularly for industrial designers, to working more in digital products. And we were already doing that. We got a vast depth of experience in working in products that involve video games, fruit machines, gambling terminals, all these kind of things where the digital physical crossover was there, and we'd been doing it for years.
Okay, so that's still very much like what you're up to today. It's a bit of digital, a bit of physical.
Yeah.
Is it important to be able to do both?
Critical in our field, because particularly in medical devices, the move towards delivering more care closer to a patient and ideally at home, and the move towards getting data from patients and updating that data in real time so you can better deliver treatments, you can better deliver diagnosis. It's become possible with the internet. It's become possible with wireless communications, and it's become possible as sensors are advanced so they can be applied to people's bodies, and we can communicate more effectively. So that kind of know-how and experience that we had already has been invaluable.
Okay. And you mentioned that regulation is similar in toy development and medical. Like, do you see regulation as a barrier to innovation, or is that something that helps?
The recent European medical device regulation is a barrier to innovation, and it has sort of
What makes you say that?
it has made it much more expensive and difficult to evidence that products are safe, to the extent where many manufacturers, many innovators have decided, well, we won't bother.
Right.
We'll look to the States.
Right.
We'll look to other markets instead, because it's just too costly and it takes too long.
Okay, but we've since left the European Union. Is that going to change after Brexit? Are they looking at reviewing that, or?
They are. They're reviewing the regulation, and one would hope that we don't follow suit with Europe, because it's probably the only benefit of Brexit that I can imagine, that we are not saddled with the burdensome regulation that Europe now faces.
Okay.
But that's not certain. Who knows what will happen?
I mean, I've recently I've been talking to somebody from the Department of Trade and Industry, and what they were suggesting is that the UK and startups in the UK need to be more Israeli. So, like in Israel, they've got a lot of very clever, innovative, smart people and companies, but they don't have a very large addressable market. So they always go international first. And I mean, do you feel like the UK should follow suit? Like, we should look international first?
We're forced to. We're forced to, and perhaps if our regulation were more aligned to the American FDA regulation, that would make it a lot easier, because we'd already be there, wouldn't we? Our problem at the moment is we're a tiny nation which doesn't have the market that would justify much of what medical device development costs.
Right.
And we've now got regulation that isn't aligned to the European regulation, isn't aligned to the United States regulation.
Yeah.
So that puts us in a bit of a strange area. So yeah, it's all very well saying be more like another nation that isn't us. That perhaps the Department of Trade and Industry has something to do in actually making it easier for us rather than lecturing us.
Yeah. I mean, I was always under the impression that the FDA was like the most stringent and most difficult to kind of get through. Is that not the case?
Not really anymore. It's probably true in the past, but it isn't true now. The European regulations have really put a damper on that market.
And that's just driving the costs up.
Yeah. The evidence we have to gather means basically clinical trials, which are very expensive, which you really don't have to do in the United States.
Right.
So,
okay. Yeah. And it lengthens the process. Comparatively, how quickly could you do something in the US, say, and how long would that take?
Well, it depends what the product is and how potentially risky it is, but you could be years ahead in the United States. You could be years ahead in Britain at the moment, and it's a bit of an issue for us. But,
okay.
Challenges.
Yeah.
That's what innovation's about.
Exactly. Okay. So, I mean, Britain, we have the NHS. That they must be a massive buyer of kind of medical devices and products and things like that. Like, how much innovation is coming out of what they're doing, and how much is it other companies kind of selling into?
Well, the NHS is a bit of a misnomer, because the NHS isn't one organisation. The NHS is hundreds of organisations which often don't work together very well. So it's if you can sell into one trust or one NHS organisation, it doesn't mean you can sell into them all, which is a big challenge. It's always been the same. But even so, the NHS have been very helpful to us in, not the NHS, but clinicians within the NHS, because we work with them all the time. We work with patients. We're adjacent. We're sited adjacent to the biggest NHS trust in Britain. And that's one of our key advantages, that we are able to access clinicians who know, patients who are involved, carers who are involved in the process. And that gives us empathy, that gives us understanding of their needs. And it's very easy for us because we've got all these contacts. One of our USPs, perhaps.
Okay. Yeah, as you talk about like having empathy and designing with empathy, like is that more important than functionality?
Absolutely, because just because something works doesn't mean it delivers something that somebody needs. So
how do you go about doing that then? Like how?
We live it. Right. Our team will embed themselves with patients or with clinicians, and will observe what they're saying their problems are. And often people's problems, you don't know what your problem is because you just put up with it, don't you? You stoically put up with issues that could be better. So we'll live with people, not literally, but we'll be in operations. We'll be observing what goes on in the pathway of care. And by doing that, we can spot opportunities that people know. We can find solutions to the problems that they do know, but perhaps even more importantly, discover the problems that they didn't even know existed in the first place. And that's where you make real breakthroughs in innovation. You can make a real difference to care.
Okay. And you say you do both your own products and products for other people. Like how much of each, and where are those ideas coming from?
It's about a 50-50 split at the moment, and the ideas, they're not necessarily ideas, but it might be a problem that, say, a clinician has spotted in their practice, and they will come to us through our contacts, and we will often find an opportunity to obtain a grant or some funding to start to develop ideas that solve that problem. Or it often churns up other opportunities that we never thought about, ways of addressing things differently. And it's about half our business now.
Okay.
And it's probably the most exciting part of our business, because we're not receiving a design brief, we're seeing a problem, and we're turning that problem into an opportunity.
Okay. And then what kind of turnaround time, like from inception to having an actual physical product that people can use?
It depends on the product, but as a rough guide, I met an angel investor years and years ago, and he always said, it's going to take you, whatever it is, it's going to take you 4 times as long as you think it's going to take you, and it's going to cost you 4 times as much.
Okay.
And if you can still make a profit knowing that, then I'm interested.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's so true of almost every opportunity that we've ever come across. In medical devices, it always costs more than you initially think.
Yeah.
Because there are so many issues.
What's driving those costs, though? Is the regulation, the data that you need to collect?
There's regulation, there's data, there's the involvement of people. Medical products and wellbeing products are basically totally focused on people, and people are the most awkward buggers you can imagine, aren't they? Because you know, if you've got a piece of software, 2 and 2 always equals 4. So provided it's programmed right, provided you ask the right question in the first place, you're going to get an answer that's predictable. But once you involve people in using that piece of software, and once you involve hardware, then those people do such different things that you never expected. And you're thinking about, well, often when we're in healthcare, we're dealing with people who are ill. So they're not going to do things which are normal. They're going to do things which are odd or unusual or unpredictable because they're ill, because of the problems that they face, whether that's within their control or, some of these people are mentally ill. They're going to do the unexpected. And that's why things, don't turn out as you first thought.
Yeah.
we have a crystal ball. We have got skills and knowledge and experience, but a crystal ball isn't enough.
Yeah.
Ever.
And how much do you feel like the people that come to you with an idea for a new product, how much do they understand about the process, or do you have to often educate them on, like, this is going to take a lot longer and cost a lot more than you think it is?
We've got some commercial clients who are very experienced, and they will have done work on the project brief beforehand. They understand the issues, so in their case, they'll be right.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we will have people. We've got a sports therapist who's working at the moment. He's never done anything like this in his life before. He's spotted a problem. He thought he'd created an opportunity, and we've worked with him through an Innovate UK Smart Award to develop a device which can predict hamstring injury. So very interesting to sports physiotherapy institutions. His experience of product development is zero. So we're working from zero to 100% knowledge.
Okay. And you've mentioned previously, like, funding, venture capitalists. Like, are these routes to finance that you're able to help people out with, or like you have contacts?
Yeah. It's a critical part of our business. We've written, we've collaborated, and we've achieved numerous grant funding awards, and we've assisted with our clients.
That's like a specialism in itself, I guess.
It is a specialism, and it's something that we've been, forced into doing, because if we want to exploit these opportunities that are in front of us, we've had to go out there and find the money to do it.
Yeah.
And we've had to build the teams, involved other collaborators in putting together good proposals for new businesses. And we've had to do that. We've been forced into it. But it gives rise to great development jobs, things that could really make a difference. I just mentioned one there. There are others looking at, particularly in the field of sustainability, which is obviously very important now.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's been important throughout the 30-odd years I've been in business, but doing more with less has always been critical, because we're in a competitive world, aren't we? We've got to do better than what's happened in the past.
I mean, that's sustainability from a kind of like a business perspective. From an environmental perspective, like, I think the medical product struggles a little bit because so much of it is designed to be put in the bin. It's all single use.
That's true, but I could give you an example. One of the first products that Lucid was commissioned to do, we weren't commissioned to do this particular product, but the Royal Mail were being squeezed. They got this universal delivery kind of obligation, which means they've got vans going everywhere in the country every day. We were asked to look at opportunities. This is a long and rambling story, but you'll get to the point in the end. We were asked to look at opportunities in their universal delivery obligation. And one of the things we saw at the time, this is 20 years ago, mad cow disease was going around. There were couriers, and there still are, going from vets to farms back to big labs with packaging, which was, in this packaging were blood samples, were urine samples. The same thing happens in clinical trials. Big, bulky packaging to protect the integrity of these samples, because they're toxic. If you're exposed to them as a delivery worker or a recipient in the lab, you could die.
Yeah.
Big, bulky cardboard and polystyrene boxes, and they were a real problem for the labs, because they've got masses and masses of packaging that can't be recycled. It's potentially contaminated. So that was an issue. We thought, well, you've got an opportunity here with the Royal Mail, because you've got thousands of post boxes. If only we could compress that packaging down to something which could fit in a post box.
Yeah.
And we designed this tamper-evident, tamper-resistant, impact-resistant, resistant to pressurization, because we had to consider it might be going in planes, it might be dropped, it might be roughly handled. This packaging, which was much more compact, and perhaps more importantly, it wasn't just more compact. When it was received, it could be dismantled in a way that it was evident whether the samples were damaged. Could be dismantled in a way which the individual types of plastic could be separated. So from what was a nightmare for the labs to deal with, they actually had cash because all this plastic could be recycled.
Right.
It was worth something.
Yeah.
So it's seeing a problem and turning it into an opportunity, and that was clinical packaging. That was 20 years ago. Yeah. That product was on the market, was withdrawn last year for 20 years. So sustainable in business can mean sustainable for the environment as well.
Yeah.
And it can mean commercial opportunities because we turned waste that cost money to dispose of and was difficult into cash. Because it was worth something for the labs. They were receiving thousands and thousands of these packages every day.
Okay.
They could sell it.
Let me counter that with another story then, another example of like the kind of inverse. So we work with this company, again from Israel. We do quite a lot of stuff with companies over there. And they had made this product, and it was a wearable medical device to monitor the amount of fluid in people's lungs. I think people with emphysema, if they get too much fluid building up in their lungs, then they need to go to hospital for quite a kind of invasive and expensive process to drain the fluid from the lungs. But if you catch it early enough, there's medicine that you can take to help. So this company that designed this wearable device, it was a beautiful product, like injection molded plastic, over molded rubber, lots of electronics inside. And I mean, it was built to last. Somebody could wear it in the shower, day to day, for months on end. But the next iteration of the product was going to be one that people would wear for 2 days and then throw away. And I couldn't get my head around it. I was like, why would you do that? But that was how they were going to make money, like that.
Well, you might also, if you analyse the carbon footprint of one versus the other, the disposable, it would seem strange, but certainly in comparison with a stay in hospital, if you didn't have the product, there are often carbon footprint benefits in disposable products. And this is something that we now employ a lady who's got a PhD in environmental sustainability, and she does this kind of work for us to balance out what, it's become more and more important in our business because there are these balances to be made, because wearing a wearable, which might be disposable, might have a significantly less impact on greenhouse gases in the environment than, say, the occasional stay in hospital.
Okay. All right. What about AI? Like, do you see that as a challenge to what you're doing, or do you think it's going to be
it's an opportunity?
An opportunity.
Yeah.
Why do you say?
Well, last week we had a problem with some materials that were reacting together unexpectedly in some prototypes we'd made, and one of our team went on to ChatGPT, asked the question about how these materials interacted, and hey presto, fantastic answer.
Okay.
It was so useful. That's just one tiny opportunity. I know a lot of there's a lot of people, if you go onto LinkedIn, who are generating images, for example, for new products. But to be honest, most of the work we are involved in, it's more complex than putting a box around something or a picture. And I'm sure that in future we will be generating those images as well where that's appropriate. I don't see it as a big threat. It's a fantastic opportunity.
Okay. Coming back to kind of the development process and the costs of it. One thing that I wanted to ask you about is like for prototyping for medical products, like how important is it to use like the real materials, the production intent material?
It's absolutely critical at some stage in the process. I see, a prototype is a misnomer, isn't it? It's the first of. I think if you translate it from the Latin or wherever it comes from, but you really require numerous iterations of prototypes, and that might run from something which is a little foam and cardboard ticky-tacky little thing that you use initially to think through an idea, right through to that real material. And the real material will be needed in the end, because in medical device design, one of the hoops we have to jump through is biological compatibility, particularly with wearables or things which are invasive to humans. So prototyping in the real, or as close as possible to the real material, is a regulatory essential. We can't sell the products without, but there have been so many steps before that. Yeah, using other processes which are appropriate at that stage.
But that's another thing that makes the whole process a little bit more expensive than developing, say, a new consumer electronics device, where in that industry you can get away with just making, say, some SLAs, and that's more than enough for prototyping purposes.
True. But you've got to think, well, there's still skill and experience and knowledge into designing those SLAs in such a way that they'll survive whatever handling or whatever experience they have to go through. I think with most devices, doing it real is an essential part of living it, isn't it? But equally, living it, you can live things with bits of cardboard.
Yeah.
You can live things with, when we're talking about kind of digital products, we prototype those. It might be as simple as Post-it notes or PowerPoints or what we call clickable prototypes first, just so that people can try, people can engage, people can give their feedback. And we make numerous models, prototypes, rigs to demonstrate those things. It's not just people, is it? We need to drop things. We need to kick them around. We need to treat them roughly. We need to understand how handling in process or in transit is going to affect a product. So prototypes are vital.
And which is easier than software or hardware? Or they both?
If you've got your facts straight, if you know what you're doing, software is perhaps easier because it's more predictable and it's quicker to change. In a medical device context, though, it's difficult because even changing software can have regulatory implications, but hardware is hard. I just gave an example, didn't I, where two materials had interacted.
Yeah.
They'd started to eat away at each other. It wasn't something that we considered. But because we made prototypes, we found out, didn't we? We went on to ChatGPT. We found there was knowledge out there in the area, and we were able to address that. If we hadn't made prototypes, that would never have happened, would it?
Yeah.
It would have been a disaster.
Yeah. In your experience, why do most? So I think there's some statistics out there, like over 75% of all kind of new medical products, medical devices fail. Like what's causing that? Like why is that?
Underestimating the cost and complexity of the problem, sometimes missing the mark. You see a lot of spin-outs, particularly from universities that are led by clinicians or academics who've spotted a problem perhaps in a particular area of medical practice, which just isn't a big enough market when faced with the costs and the duration of a medical device development. In Britain, we fund there's a lot of funding out there for early stage development from bodies like Innovate UK and others. And that funding just doesn't last far enough, and there is perhaps a reluctance in the UK because of that for other capital sources to get involved. You're never going to go to your bank successfully and say, can you lend me £100,000 to start this medical device development? Just wouldn't happen, would it? You wouldn't probably go to a venture capitalist and do that. They'll say, go away and get a grant and prove it first. So there's a reluctance to take risks, but there's also, for a good reason, because some of the management, if you're an academic or a clinician, you're probably not going to make the greatest manager of a medical device business. It's not to say that your experience and your skills can't be part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you look for before you take a project on then? What are the key things for you?
Undermet opportunities we look for. We look for areas where something has clearly, there could be a massive step in delivering a real need. We look for areas that are priorities in healthcare organisations, priorities for funding. So the NHS in this country has priorities. In the United States, the insurance companies have big areas of priority. We look for them, and we look for niches where we face less competition because it's so new or so special.
Okay. How much of the stuff you're doing is for the UK? How much for other parts of the world?
Well, because we're designing for people live everywhere, don't they? And I think, almost everything we do has got applications all over the world, and that's the beauty of people, isn't it? These awkward people, there's over 7 billion of them, and they're running around all over the place, aren't they? So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you. Some fantastic insights. Just one kind of final question. One piece of advice that you would give to anyone wanting to develop a new medical product?
Live it. That's my only piece of advice. I'd say whenever we've done something that's worked, it's because we and our customers, our end users have been involved from early in the process, and they've really understood it, and they've fed into it, and they've been part of it. All of us have been part of it, and that's the means to success.
Okay, thanks again, Alistair, for those fantastic insights. If you're looking to develop a medical or health-related product, having a team like Lucid on board to help navigate the terrain and help you through the regulatory and other hoops you might have to jump would be a fantastic help. Alistair, if we want to find out more about you guys and what you do, where should we go?
You can visit our website, which is www.lucidinnovation.com, or give us a call, 0161 860 0058, or email me, ideas@lucidinnovation.com, or get in touch with me on LinkedIn. It's Alistair Williamson. You'll see my ugly face on there.
Okay. Thanks again, Alistair, and thanks everyone for listening. See you next time. Bye-bye. Whether you're working on your first product or your 10th, you've got the Prototype and See podcast to back you up through your product development journey. Follow, subscribe, and tune in for our next episode. We can't wait to see where your prototype takes you.